Hello and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and I have a returning guest today. This is their third time on the podcast, and I was always surprised because I this just it wasn't planned this way. But the last time they were on was almost exactly a year ago, as we record this, when we were talking about things like Kid Maroon and Out of Alcatraz, and I think Red Shirts hadn't even come out yet. But he is back for a third time. He is writing the new IDW Star Trek #1 with artist Dennis Menheere and Jody Troutman lettering, and I am very excited. I got to see issue 1 already, which will be out September 23rd. Final order cutoff is August 17th, so you'll still have a few days if you're listening to this episode when it first comes out. But please welcome back to the podcast, Christopher Cantwell. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I can't believe I've been on 3 times. That's awesome. I feel like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanna be the Alec Baldwin of Comic Book Yeti, where I have the most hosting, record. I've been on the most. I'm sure I have a long ways to go. Like, there'll be somebody crazy you tell me that's been on 10 times, and it'll be like,
uh, no one has been on 10 times. I do know this. We have 3 people that have been on 5 times, so you only have 2
"Wow,
more appearances to match those. The winner, though, right now, Steve Fox has been on, like, 7 times.
7 times." Okay.
With with Byron. I have never
Oh, that's really
interviewed
funny.
Steve Fox. He's always been on Byron's episodes, but yeah, so you don't have that many more to
Should we
go.
just do, like, 5 episodes in a row right now about whatever we want? Like, we'll do Star Trek, and then we'll just riff for the
Yeah,
next 4. We'll just crank out 2.5 hours of audio content, and then I'll be
yeah,
like,
and
"I did it!"
yep, I'll just break them up, and I'll, like, release them, every couple of months, and by the
Perfect,
end of
and
the
then you'll be like,
year.
"Chris is getting closer to the record," and then, "Congrats to Chris on his 8th appearance." That'd be awesome.
He's done it.
He did it! Um, yeah, it's so wild, and it was also a year ago. Yeah, so we hadn't done Red Shirts, and then we were out of Alcatraz. Out of Alcatraz, I think, was out, but we were it was in between,
Right.
and the hardcover was gonna come out in the
Yeah.
fall.
And
Yeah.
I think Red Shirts had, like, I don't think Red Shirts had actually come out yet, but yeah, your episode aired last year, August 12th.
Oh my
So,
god,
we're
that's funny.
almost a year.
Wow.
Yeah. But you're no stranger to writing Star Trek. Obviously, Red Shirts, you did, I think, what, 4 volumes of the Defiant series. You've written other
Yeah, I
things
think it
as
was
well, but
actually I was trying to think of this the other day. It was like, if I can think I can name the art, because I was in Comic-Con, I think on the panel, I was like, "How long did we do that?" And Jackson and Colin were like, I think we did it for, like, 3.5 years. They started before me, but I came on a few months after that. So, like, even though my book didn't come out, um, I think it was, like, a year after their no, they did a shit, I don't even remember now. But, yeah, I went for 27 issues. So it was, like, the first volume, uh, and then we did the Day of Blood crossover, and then we did another piece of the action with Mike Fian, and then we did Hell Is Only a Word, which was the Parasite arc with Angel Anzoetta, who came back, and then, um yeah, I guess you're right, and then I did the last one was No Old Warriors, and then we did Lore War. It
Lore
was
War,
crazy.
yeah.
Years of
Yeah.
my life given to Star Trek.
Yes. It
Just
has.
handed over.
And Red Shirts, which I thought was fantastic, and
Oh, thanks.
now you're taking over with a brand new, uh, #1 issue that sees, 7 of 9 captaining the newly christened, uh, Enterprise, the USS NC-701G.
G.
Uh,
Oh,
G.
G. Oh, G, is it still the Enterprise? Uh, yeah, she's doing it, but I will say, our show our show, our comic book our comic book, our grand comic book follows, season 3 of Picard, which was helmed by Terry Matalas and was wonderful. But I wanted to make sure that were Terry to ever come back, or whoever to come back and do more of that, that this isn't the next day after Picard season 3. It's not like the morning after we're like, "What now?" They're 5 years in. So we this allows us to honor what they did in Picard season 3, but also change it up a little bit just to make it our own, make it a comic book story, and then leave room in case they wanted to go do something else with those characters, which I would be wonderful if that ever happened. But yeah, so we find Seven on the 5-year anniversary of her taking over the Enterprise and really going, what's next? And wondering what her legacy, no pun intended, will be. Um, when it comes to this ship and how many names she's followed and what that means for her that first issue really hands her a lot on her plate where it's careful what you wish for because she gets an insane assignment from Starfleet um to leave the known galaxy and go to this previously unexplored area of space. It's not even previously unexplored, it was literally hidden, like, the sensors couldn't detect it. Probes were sent off 200 years ago under Archer and all of that stuff, for colonization to go look for Class M worlds, and, there were some probes that were thought lost, and then 5 years ago, so right as Picard was ending, these probes came back, and they've been studying these probes for 5 years in terms of where they've been. And they've been in a dilated part of space beyond the Alpha Quadrant that Starfleet has dubbed the Epsilon corridor. So this is a special new area of space, at least new to the Federation. Um, and they're sending the Enterprise in to explore and perhaps consider colonizing said space-time dilated corridor. But it's very fun, and I'm super stoked for it, and we got the first issue, shared around, with some folks, and, you always worry about that initial reaction, but I and get anxious about everything, doing anything, and, the response has been very positive so far, so I hope people really dig it, 'cause this is no longer me. I feel like I got to safely hide in Jackson and Collins' shadow with Defiant for a few years and do, blood sport, but with Worf, like, I feel like, and then
Right.
over here, and Red Shirts is a little bit like, what about these guys that you've never heard of and they die?
Yeah.
This is like the full thing. So I've really tried to own and honor that as much as possible. And then what Denny's doing with the book is incredible. Just I can't believe that. I'll put it this way: I'm so happy that Paramount has evolved from photorealism, in the days of the '80s books, at DC to art that really is almost impressionistic in the way that it embraces the comic medium, and it's really special what he's doing with the art. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I loved the first issue, and, I mean, my relationship, I guess, with Star Trek, and we probably mentioned this a little bit before when you were on last year and we started to talk about red shirts, is I was a huge, Next Generation fan, like, loved it, every episode, and the other series since then, I have not, watched all of them, but I did watch Picard when it was on because that was my thing, the Next Generation, and I had that background going into this issue. I still found the issue, even if I had it, pretty approachable, like, you kinda lay the groundwork as to who everybody is. Uh,
Hmm.
I will say, though, I've talked to Dennis before, he's been on the podcast when him and Anas Abdulhak did Etheris, and I love
Yeah.
his art, and, I mean, whether or not it's Paramount, IDW, but the art for The Last Starship and now this series with Dennis, I just feel like is totally unexpected in like what I would think of a typical Star Trek
Yeah.
comic, and it is fantastic.
Oh, that's
Like
good to hear. Yeah,
it's
I'm glad you like it.
amazing. Oh,
I
I
love it too. It's
thought it was
so
wonderful.
Heather Antos brought Dennis in, and it's so cool because I knew Etheris and um I was like, "We're getting this guy? This is gonna be incredible." And it is. Like, I just feel like what he's doing lends itself to what I'm trying to do on the story side of it is craft something that just feels completely new for a property that is 60 years old this year, right? And
Yeah.
so how do you do that? And I think the number one answer before you even get to any of my wacko ideas is you get Denny Menheere to do this, and to draw this and color it and let him just go. And I mean, even with the scripts, I'm like, man, they're all yours. I'm seeing stuff from issue 2 and the subsequent issues, and he's like, I hope you don't mind if I change this around. I'm like, this looks way better than anything I could have fathomed in my dumb Microsoft Word brain. It's so good. Um, I'm just so happy that he's on this thing. And then, I worked with Jody Troutman on Red Shirts in terms of lettering, and she's one of the best I've ever worked with, and especially when it comes to Trek lettering, because Trek lettering um, the lettering can be uh dense, right? The Star Trek lends itself to it's less. I feel like if you're just doing like pew 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 in Star Trek, you're kind of messing up. But listen, I mean so that's the trick of the comic, right? It's like um how to do that, but also make it readable and let it be art forward and all that stuff. But Jody is so good at crafting the way people speak in Star Trek from different civilizations or species and really giving it a unique um tone and feel for each kind of person. I mean, she's really
Yeah.
in there just delicately touching certain things, like how the Borg telepathy between Jack and Seven looks and feels and reads on the page, right? How our new kind of big bad comes across in terms of their narration of this story, and what it suggests about them. It's just all of us are working together in such great sync that it's amazing.
Yeah, I love the lettering in it. And you have I love the opening of it. The opening of this comic I thought was, fantastic in terms of what's going on, the whole look of it. Um, I just thought it was a great way to kind of like get in, and then you kind of then you get centered into like the first mission that we see them on before they're called to talk about the Epsilon corridor. One of the things I really wanted to compliment you on, just like thinking about the 3 seasons of Picard that I watched, and you're 5 years later now. There are some familiar characters, so
Yeah.
fans of Picard are going to get that. But this is something that if you didn't watch that, it's very approachable. It is very Star Trek. You have some big concepts, but you also have really character-driven storytelling with everyone on the ship. I really thought in terms of the character that we saw of Seven of Nine in that 3rd season of Trek and taking over the ship from Shaw, I really thought you captured
Oh, that's good.
her voice really, really well. I mean, it was because she's somebody who I think it's a bit surprising when we see it in Picard that she's going to be sitting in, like, in that captain's chair,
Hmm.
uh, but there's also as that character has grown and developed from Voyager and from Picard and other things we've seen her in, there she has a real attitude. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say, like, sense of humor, but it's definitely there, and we saw it in Picard, and I thought you really captured that as well. There's a particular line where she's, you know, says something along the lines of, "I'm not looking forward to signing up for Voyager times 10."
Right.
I felt it worked very well on the page. It was very it felt very familiar. It really worked. I thought it was great.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I think that what Jerry Ryan did with that character, I thought was so impressive in Picard, where the way that's a character where you have 35 years of history, I mean, it's wild, like that of story history too, right? Where you're starting in Voyager and how she has to reacclimate to where she is in Picard as a Fenry Ranger um and then aboard with Shaw, like, it's such an incredible evolution that all those writers tracked
Mhm.
and Jerry built. I mean, like, it's an
Yeah.
incredible it's become I think, like, that f 7 was already so great in Voyager, but then what Jerry Ryan did in Picard with that performance, it created a my favorite characters in Star Trek, and so many of the best characters in Trek are people of 2 worlds or multiple worlds, right? If you look at Spock being half human, half Vulcan, or Worf being raised by human parents, and it goes on, but, like, to see Jerry wrestle with that, or Seven wrestle with that, as a human that is now an XB reclaimed Borg, whatever you wanna call it, right? Like, is
Yeah.
so fascinating, and to see her say, "I've been decoupled from the Borg longer than I ever was, um, when I was assimilated and attached to it, she still sleeps standing up," and things like that, that we do in our book,
Yeah.
but I think we couldn't get there without what she was able to do on screen, and I that was a it was a tall order because what we're trying to do in this is speak to all of it, right? And yet have her feel like a character you can just jump on with, if you're not familiar with all this stuff that we're familiar with, and just go, right? Like, really just go and go forward and go boldly. That was what Heather and I talked about when building the premise for this book. So, and she had to be at the center of that. And it felt like what we owed most from Picard season 3 was her in the chair and what that actually is like, Jack Crusher, and what that's actually like with him in Star Trek, right? The son of Beverly Crusher and Jean-Luc Picard. Um, but then also, again, to speak to that distance, that 5 years, right? Um, I wanted to do something new with the relationship between Seven and Raffi, and that's something I worked on with Charlie Jane Anders a lot, who's writing Zero Point, where it just felt like Raffi was such an important character and such an eye-opening experience in Picard that it felt like years in, she's so senior and has done so much, and is kind of almost pseudo-legendary like the rest of them, that she would be given her own command, right? And I think that she was gonna be Seven's XO as Picard ended, right? But I was also like, well, the romantic relationship to me is so important. Um, it was gonna be, do we write the dynamic of them on the bridge together while also being in a romantic relationship? Was like, well, that'll be interesting, but then it was like, I needed to get a little bit of distance from the show in order to feel like it was not a direct sequel, and so that people would pick it up who hadn't seen it. And but that from that was born the idea that Rafi would be given her own command, and with IDW her own book, which is what's fun.
Yeah.
But they're together through it, and so, like, that to us was the way that the books will speak to each other, and that's how we were able to do the last Star Trek series, which was, if Benjamin Sisko is the lead of, Jackson and Collins' Star Trek that they began with Ramon Rosanas, Worf, his kind of adversarial friend from D Space Nine, was gonna run in my book and be in command. And so it felt like, who could our biggest um signposts be, our trailheads be? And so it just made sense for these two people who are deeply connected to be driving two stories. But we still can write that story, and that will allow us to actually literally cross over once we get down the road with the two of them, and and have the books speak to each other, I think, in a very unique way that hasn't been done in kind of companion Star Trek shows before, or comics. It's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes it really exciting, and, also, like, fast forwarding 5. I mean, I know you said about it's 5 years after the end of Picard season 3, because if they ever do something with, Paramount does anything with the show, but also it allows you to, kind of work in character development for some of the characters that we saw from Picard, and kind of build a little bit more character into them in terms of the story you're telling, but it also allows you to introduce, some new characters. There also are some
Yes.
new characters on the Enterprise, which is, pretty exciting to kind of get to learn
Yeah,
who
and
they are.
that was part of it too. It was how do I, again, not make it a direct sequel, right? Leave room for that if they're gonna do that, but also make this story its own thing, in the Star Trek universe. And so it's part of Picard and part of where we left the story off into the future. Obviously, Jackson and Colin are also touching the far future, right? So we're both books are
Yeah.
really looking forward in terms of what's happening, and Zero Point will as well. But um I also wanted to speak to the comic runs we had done and feel make these feel unified with those. So there are two characters from the first Star Trek run that Jackson and Colin did, and that they wrote, and the Defiant run, which is the one I wrote, which is we have Lily Sato, who is older, who has gone away from Starfleet for a while and come back because that's how she knows Seven is through the Fenry Rangers, something that Jackson and Colin wrote to over the course of their run. And then I have Alexander Worf's son, who I went to great lengths to redeem in the eyes of all Star Trek fans. Poor Alexander. I wanted to give him something awesome. And it was actually fun to take a character that felt a little derided in the fan community for good reason, and some also like, I get it. Also, Worf's not a great dad. It's like a big flaw in Worf's character that's kind of left out there,
Yeah.
and build out here's how Alexander became a man, and it was a rocky road, and here's how he repaired with his father. All of which speaks to where we find him on our Enterprise, which is now he's in his mid or late 40s, and he's the first Klingon chief medical officer. He's gone from warrior to healer in the book. And if you go back and read Defiant, it's even richer, but also you just go, is that Alexander? That's a worse kid, or it's
Yeah.
just a cool Klingon. And you're like, what I know about Klingons is they kill people and get angry. And you're like, that's the doctor? Like that. It's just
Yeah.
like those kinds of questions you can ask. And then create some new characters that we could just say these are brand new and you know nothing about them. You're gonna learn about them along with the rest of us as we create them, and it will be yours to kind of own if this is your first entry point into Star Trek. It was like, oh, I'm getting to know a Romulan chief engineer who is a prodigy. I'm getting to know a Bajoran counselor who's also a chaplain, which we've never seen on the show, which is a return to a respect for spirituality within the Federation because of all of the ways that Deep Space Nine and other stories have touched on religion and spirituality across the galaxy. So all of that stuff goes into the pot, and it's really fun.
Yeah, it's a really fun crew. I had a great time trying to like learn who everybody is. I thought you also did some very interesting things because there's like what is it, the hollow psych that we see Seven
Yeah, she's
in
on the
on this
holodeck. Yeah, and she's actually
yeah,
going
the
through
hollow.
she's going through the holodeck on a intensive a psych oh god, what a it's psycho intensive psychotherapy that is actually based on real stuff that is used today. But it's extrapolated to the holodeck where you can actually now
Right.
relive, certain things that you've experienced in your life, but Seven is not interested in that. The whole book is a big comment on that, which is also kind of the meta comment of this moment in Trek history at 60 years, which is we can't ignore the past and just leave it behind. You have to kind of take it and process it in order to move forward and survive. And I think
Yeah.
that's the big challenge ahead of our crew aboard the Enterprise and the other ships in the story. There's multiple ships, and then also the challenge to Star Trek as a whole. That's the creative, artistic challenge is to say, okay, what can we take from what came before in terms of theme, in terms of motif, in terms of story, and see that kind of thrust forward into something brand new, and that's what we're trying to do in this book and Zero Point. And it's fun. It's hard, but it's fun.
Well, I also liked it just in terms of like a comic book storytelling device because like you have somebody reliving something on the holodeck and you can like you can learn about the character, learn about the past, you can actually see it. And so it's just a very good comic booky way to kind of like learn about your characters.
Yes, you try to, and listen. It's like if you are just coming into Star Trek, if you start to talk about what Star Trek is, people are like, "I'm gonna jump off this cliff," because there's so much, right? Because
Oh
you
yeah.
can really over it. Star Trek has this reputation of having this high bar of entry, which I think some fans, and I will even include myself in that, like you kind of pride yourself and be like, "You don't get it," you know, like, so but you have to be careful because then you end up playing to a room of 5 people, and they all
Right.
argue with you. They're like, "That's not how it is," you know, and you're like, "Shut up," you know, then it's not fun. So I think, um, with this, it's like, how do you find those ways that are, to your point, like, entertaining and surprising and have you leaning forward and flipping the page,
Yeah.
but are also telling you, "Hey, here's how this works." You know what I mean? There's a ship called the Enterprise, and we're going through space, and there's a person who used to be kind of a robot, I guess, who is messed up from that, but she's in charge, and but she's kind of dealing with a lot because there were all these awesome people before her she's talking about. Like, you can get there, without
Yeah.
we can't go like, "Why is it a G?" I don't know. We'll just let's don't
Yeah.
worry about that. We'll just keep going, like, we're not gonna spend
We'll get
time
there.
on, like,
Right.
we'll get to that when we talk about the H, like, who cares?
Right.
I do think it's funny that the Federation for 200 years or no, like 150 at this point or whatever it is, they keep just lettering it. It feels kind of like a government system where it's just bureaucratic, where there's the one guy where someone, like, you can tell, like, there's, like, some president or politician, like the president of the Federation is like, "We should just call it the Enterprise. Why are we?" And then there's some rules and regulations guy at Utopia Planitia where they build the ships who's like, "No, according to the manifest and the charter, like, we have to continue the alphabetical ordering of our vessels just for transponder
Right.
signal clearance and clarity across international or interstellar borders with our friends and adversaries. So, G it is." Like,
Gee, it is.
it's like- and the
I
person, you can
I
see the person who's like, "Forget it, fine, put the fucking G on the
but the
top of the."
I wanna I wanna know when they're gonna run out of, like, the actual, like, class of ship because 'cause I'm like, because every designation and letter is, like, a different class, and I'm like, "Oh, I used to know all of these," and I'm
I
like,
know, and then it's like,
I
it's
was
kind of
looking it up
like,
today, yeah, I was like, "Wait, what happened to the E? What happened to
yeah, it's
the
like,
F?" I'm trying to
and those are
do I
that's covered
remember?
in Picard. It's crazy, and it's like
It
E
is.
was the
Yeah.
one, like, Picard and Data were in charge of the E, and then it's like, F is like, "Hey, God," and then they're just
Yeah.
immediately history. Like, I think it's kind of fun to play with that, and you gotta remember this too as we're laughing through it. It's like, you can't Star Trek is supposed to be fun. Like, it's gotta be fun, and 'cause it's a story, and it's like any other story, you can't you can't take your fun too seriously, like I tell my kids, right? And so I've gotta find ways to make myself laugh, the editors laugh, Denny laugh, Jody laugh, like,
Yeah.
because but it's coming from I'm not laughing at, it's like laughing from a place of profound love, which is what I think Mike McMahon did so incredibly in Lower Decks, where
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
this is a person who loves this, but is
Yes.
also very funny and can bring that tone to Star Trek. It felt like an impossible task, and then it's iconic now forever. Like, it's
Yeah.
to the point where we got to incorporate another like, in Zero Point, Tendi is the XO, and she's older, and, like, you get to continue that story, and Mike is so stoked to have those characters live on in these different ways. We get to do things like Shaq's best day and Shaq's worst day in the last run. It's just and I will say that even though this is forward, something that I took, like, from the original stuff, like, those first seasons of original series, is we're still doing stuff that's like, and then there's a Ray, and it makes everyone angry, like,
Yeah.
like, like, because you can get super deep and super pseudosciency and jargony, and that's fun, and that can even be funny. But then you can also do stories where it's like, we're gonna cut off all of everyone's senses, and including the ships, and then everyone's blind, deaf, and dumb, and they have to work together, right? Like, you just keep the story simple, even as you layer a bunch of crazy stuff on top of it. It just keeps the audience, dancing through the book with you, which is fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to, episodes of, The Next Generation that I watched and loved, and there were some episodes that I thought were unbelievably profound, like The Inner Light or,
Yeah,
like,
that's my favorite. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, mine too, are, I I don't know if I just wanted Darmok and Gelada
Yeah,
Tanakh,
it's I think
whatever
it's just
the
called
episode
Darmok,
is.
isn't it? I think it's
Is
just
it
called
called
Darmok.
Darmok?
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, but then there's also what was the episode? The Naked Now, where,
Yeah,
like,
that was
something
the 3rd
happens and
episode out.
everybody
Yeah.
gets horny?
Yeah, it's like everyone just gets horny. I mean, but it's like but again, it's funny, you get to, like, take all of that, whether you because it's also those are shows that went into syndication right away, and they're do you know, like, we're gonna do a 24 episode season order, like,
Yeah.
it's like so you just you're I'm sure the writers are sitting there going, "I don't know, they go camping," like, it's
Yeah, exactly.
just shoot it, like, and that's and comics kind of share that DNA from their history as well, and there's a fun in that, like, in the kind of serial nature of it, yes, but also you can drop in and go, "Whoa," and I think that, like, Charlie Jane is doing this, I think, to great effect in Zero Point, what I've seen so far is those first few issues feel like episodes, and we do it too in our book through the first arc. It's all connected, but you can drop in and go, "Oh, I get it." Like, they're facing this problem right now, and I'm gonna watch them deal with this problem or read them deal with this problem. There's bigger stuff going on in the background, obviously, but we'll get to that later. Like right now, it's um, these two people are wrestling on the transporter pad. Like you can do that stuff. Or like in Charlie's first issue, it's like, they're going into an eyeball planet and they've got to get in and get out alive. It's like cool. Like that's some
Right.
really fun stuff. And Trek lends itself to that kind of modular storytelling as well. So you want the issues to stand on their own, just like
Oh,
the
yeah.
episodes did,
Sure.
because
Sure.
you never watched them. No one ever watched them in order back then. I mean, I was watching it, as it went, but like in syndication, they'd be like all over the place. They're like, here's this, and you're like, and it's kind of like a little telenovela, and you're like, oh, like Data built a daughter, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that
It's really
episode.
fun. Yeah.
Before I let you go, I just wanted to ask a couple of, we talk about it's a big high concept in terms of Trek and the crew um that you have on it and where we're set. But I wanted to ask, like, just from a you having written Star Trek, being a fan of it, you've mentioned it, it's the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. Were there things that either you had done before that in terms of Defiant or things that you just really love about Star Trek that you were excited about incorporating into this series that you can talk about? Whether or not it's you know, what does Seven say, when she tells LaForge to put it into warp, or like
Oh
other
yeah.
things that are very Star Trekky that you are like, I'm very excited that I'm gonna get to do something like with this.
Yes. I mean, I think both of those things, right? Like I will say like I think we've talked about this before and other stuff. I'll be like doing something with DC and I'll be like, I really want to do Plastic Man, and they're like, what? Like, but I'm like all about it, like, and that, like, so doing something like that and writing a character, getting to see Alexander as a chief medical officer is like, it's very fun for me, just as like that's stuff I worked on for years in Defiant to build that character out as an adult and really put him through the ringer with Jackson and Colin. So to keep that going is awesome. To keep their character Lily Sato going, who I think is one of the best characters created in Trek. Um, those guys and Ramon creating her, she's so special to see her story continue. But then, yeah, I mean, Terry and that show, they cut out before you see what Seven says to Warp. So
Yeah.
I was like, I just went right into it. I was like, we gotta say we can't keep we can't keep cutting.
Yeah.
We don't have that trick. We can't like go to a black panel and then the story continues because they're literally warping all over the place. So
Yeah.
I don't have her saying it all the time, but I did pick something for her that is, to your point in our discussion about her, it feels like Seven went, she reached into her humanity and pulled something out. That is, it sounds good. It sounds like seasoned Jerry Ryan, I think, from season 3, maybe even a little older. But also it's a reference to something in Earth past, and in humanity's past that if anybody picks it up, I'll be amazed. But I think it's just it's like we got to give her something, so you get to choose that. and you get to do it
Yeah,
on the 60th anniversary year of the creation of Star Trek. That's really fun, and that's very special, and I feel very privileged and honored to do that. So it's really cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate you coming back on. And yeah, we'll record some more later, so we can you can blow past the couple of creators that have been on 5 times, and then
I'm
we'll get
looking
you past
forward
Steve
to our
Fox at
our
7.
additional my additional 5 appearances. I think we should just get
Yes,
into the iCal of it after this and just set it up, and just get them
yeah,
get them on the books so
we'll
we
knock it
can just
out.
yeah, exactly, and just keep going, you know what I mean? Like, maybe
Yeah,
just once a week.
we'll just meet.
I'll
We'll just
become
meet
an
and talk.
unofficial co-host of
Yeah,
Comic Book Yeti. You guys will be like, "Ah, Cantwell wants to be on again. Get this guy out of here,"
yeah.
It's like, "I just want the
Hey,
number. I want the record. I want the belt."
hey, look, it's fine. That's not a problem. We can do it. But listeners, Star Trek issue number 1 from IDW. Final order cutoff is August 17th. The issue will be out September 23rd. It is 7 of 9 captaining the Enterprise. It is a fantastic first issue. Dennis has been on the podcast before, a tremendous artist, Jody Troutman lettering. It is just such a fantastic issue. And look, if you're someone that likes Trek, you haven't seen, all of Picard, or DS9 was your Trek, or Voyager, or what Strange New Worlds, whatever it might be, or even if you're just like a Lower Decks fan, I'm telling you, this is just a fantastic comic. If you're even a little bit interested in Star Trek, you are really going to like it. And if you haven't checked anything Star Trek related out and you just stumbled upon this episode, I'm telling you, give it a chance. It was a really fantastic number 1 issue. Um,
Yeah, buy it
just
for the art.
some
Just buy it to
tremendous
flip
Star
through it. Like,
Trek.
I used to do, and I'm sure you
Yeah.
did too, Jimmy, when we were kids. It's like, you're reading. It's like, I don't know all the stuff about this person, but I'm going to look at this incredible work done by Eric Larson, or Marie
Oh
Severin,
yeah.
stare at it, and then figure out the rest later,
Yeah.
fun.
Absolutely. It's just one of those things that it does not look like what you would expect a Star Trek comic to look, but it works, and it looks phenomenal. And so,
Come
yeah.
for the cowl neck uniforms, stay for the Ray that makes everyone angry.
Yeah. Do that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
Um so listeners, rate and review us, do all the stuff they tell you to do about podcasts. Shout out to my brother Bobby, the Cryptid Creator Corner's number 1 most dedicated fan. Bobby listens to all my episodes, so shout out to Bobby, and shout out my coworker. I refer to her as my business husband, Rachel at work, who has started listening to the podcast, which I'm absolutely shocked that another attorney is listening to my comic book podcast, but she likes it. So, um, hi, Rachel, if you listen to this episode. She's also a big Star Trek fan. Um, so, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I thought it was a phenomenal first issue, and I'll see you next week.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye.
All right.
All right, listeners, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time, and good night.